All right, I see a red light. We're back, JP. It's football season right now. Welcome, everyone, to the Rice Football Blue and Gray preview show, kicking off the 2024 season. It's finally here. I'm your host, Matthew Bartlett, editor and managing director of The Roost, joined, as always, with JP Heath, the voice of the Owls, here to talk a little Rice football, here to preview the Sam Houston game. Are you ready to go?
I am now. I only had like 9 months to get ready for the show and mid-season form, as always. How you doing, brother? Good to be in this routine again. I love it.
I'm good, man. I've been waiting on it. So, and as per tradition, you could listen to us Yahoos talk about stuff that we have read depth charts about, but we're not going to do that. We have joining a show this week, Carlos Zimmerman, the voice of the Cats, the voice of the Bearcats, all of the above with a K, to help us preview Sam Houston. So we'll bring him in here in a little bit. He can give us much better insight, I hope, on our fine friends from up north, up 45. How is it going, Carlos? Welcome to the show.
Matthew, JP, appreciate y'all having me. Yeah, it's football time again in Texas, as we know. Football's king here, and what better way to start than with a little battle between Cats and Owls? Should be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. First off, what's it been like for you here, beginning the third season? You had so many close games last year. What was it, 5 down to 1 score or less? I was following y'all from afar, and it's like, man, they were so close, and kind of parlay that into the attitudes, which I assume are optimistic for this season. What's the attitude up there in Huntsville?
Well, JP, there's a lot of optimism with the Bearcats this season. Like you said, I mean, 3-9 was disappointing in the lines of not just us media guys, but as well as the players and the coaches. They felt like, well, they could have been 8-4 and appeal for a spot in a bowl game because of just how close those games were, and that's really what the attitude was throughout through the spring, through summer, through fall training camp, that they wanted to get better strength and conditioning wise, nutrition wise, so that they could finish those games that they should have a year ago. So, but there's a lot of optimism going into this season. There's no, transition rule to worry about. There's just one thing to focus on, and that's just playing Bearcat football to the best of this team's ability, and they have a lot of it, which I'm sure we'll document throughout this time together. So, but optimism is the name of the game here in Huntsville.
And I was curious, I want to hear your perspective on it, because for any Rice fans or folks that might not be familiar with Sam Houston, this is a legitimately a championship caliber program coming up from the FCS level, and made that jump to the FBS and had some of the growing pains. Have you kind of, from your perspective, what has been the biggest jump that you've seen from how this program operates, from being successful at one level and then now trying to get its footing at the next?
I think the biggest jump I've seen from let's just say the last 3 years that I've been around the program closely, the recruiting has definitely taken a huge step with making this jump, because now you can sort of compete with like a U of H, a Texas, an A&M, and see that, hey, there's an FBS school not too far away from home. So that's definitely been a huge jump. We've seen a lot of FBS caliber athletes come into the program, and there's a lot of them on this roster through the transfer portal. So I would say that. And then the level of coaching has gone up as well. What head coach Casey Keeler has done with his staff has been nothing short of impressive, bringing in guys with FBS experience already on their belt, or very quality FCS experience. So really the recruiting and the coaching, which obviously go hand in hand, that's been a huge jump, and it's been a pleasant sight to see for sure.
Yeah, obviously the right guy at the helm for the transition. Coach Keeler, all the experience in the world with the 2 titles, one with y'all a few years ago. What are Coach Keeler's sentiments, and what have you observed about his day-to-day thoughts of the squad? Obviously, with so many close games last year, I'm sure he's optimistic too. What's the mentality of the coaching staff?
I mean, they're locked in and ready to go. I spoke with Coach Keeler today in our press conference, as well as my pregame talk with him. And like you said, his optimism is up. He really loves what the staff did with the roster in fall camp. He really loved what he saw in the position battles, especially at quarterback, with three really established guys in their own respective ways with Grant Gunnell, Jace Bauer, and Hunter Watson. But they showed a lot of promise too with the freshman from DeSoto, DJ Bailey. But he really loved that these guys just really bought into what this staff is trying to do, and that's build a season where you can get Sam Houston into a bowl game for the first time. And with the way the landscape of college football is, ultimately looking further ahead, possibly contending for a spot in the college football playoff. So that's what this program's building for. So he's really he's excited. I mean, there's not much else to say about it. He just exudes that excitement. And I've known him for 4 years, and I've never seen him light up like that when he talks about his team. So he's has a lot of confidence in this squad and his staff to make it happen this year.
And we mentioned off the jump how close Sam Houston was in so many games last year. This was a defense that was nails for most of the season, and they just had to find a way to get offense to get some points on the board. You touched on quarterbacks a little bit. There's 3-ish. How do you kind of see that shaking out? And what do you think they've done on the offensive side of the ball this offseason to turn that around? Can they fix it over the course of a season, or how close do you think they are on the offensive side of the ball to getting things going?
Matthew, they're really on the doorstep of where they need to be. Like I mentioned with the quarterback battle, you bring in a guy who has experience at the FBS level in Jace Bauer from Central Michigan. Grant Gunnell was on your roster a year ago, had one start against Houston. And then we thought it was going to be between those two guys, but then here enter a JUCO national champion in Hunter Watson from Iowa Western, and watching him through the spring and into fall camp blew us away with his style of play, and just the way he just manages a ball game, even in those controlled situations of practices and scrimmages. So whoever they decide to go with, they're definitely going to be in good hands, because I think a big key factor was the offensive line going into this season. What the staff did a really good job of is really helping them on the strength and conditioning side. I was honestly, before I came on here, I was starting to work on my 2 deep depth chart, and I looked at it. Between the 10 guys that are on there, there's only one that is under 300 pounds, which is completely different from what it was a year ago. So they really beefed up in the off season. So that's the exciting thing, is that whoever is going to be the one under center probably won't be running for their life, because he has a strong offensive line in front of him, and he's also got great skill pieces around him too. Coach Keeler has said this wide receiver room is one of the deepest he's had in his career. And that's a career that spans Rowan College, Delaware, and now, of course, Sam Houston. So, and don't shy away from the running back room either. There's a lot of key pieces in there too, bringing back John Gentry and Zach Urbacic, but also the addition of Jay Ducker that I think Rice fans will have to watch out for on Saturday. But the ground game, they're not afraid to run at you downhill. So they're on the doorstep of where they need to be. I think it's just fine-tuning things through this non-conference slate to prepare for Conference USA play.
Can you elaborate a little more on the receiver core? Because your boy Jordan was telling me about Adehi, who I'd done. I think I've got that pronunciation right. We got a few days till the game, Carlos, but how Adehi's got these African king bloodlines, and how he's put up over 2,000 career yards, like all conference, and potentially 3 different conferences here. Just beyond him, it seems like he's the top guy in the receiving core, who is, insert name here, quarterback, going to have the big targets out wide to try to test that right secondary. Who would those guys be?
So aside from Adeyi, It's funny Jordan described him as that. But aside from him, Noah Smith, who's our representative at Media Day in Frisco, he's an interesting story. When he got to Sam, he was here as a running back, but last season they decided to try him out at wide receiver, and he has just blossomed in that role with what he did a year ago in a year where the wide receiver room was hampered with injuries. Malik Phillips was another one that stepped up last season, who I think you'll see get a lot of touches in terms of catches, rather, on Saturday. But another one that has surprised, maybe not so much surprised us, but has been impressive through fall camp, and that was Simeon Evans. He took a huge step up in role, and the only other guy I would think would be Quavez Humphreys. We haven't gotten to see him in live play because he got hurt in fall camp a year ago and missed the entire season last year. So there's a lot of guys in there that can hit you with just quickness off the snap, and then just excellent route runners from what I saw from the few camps I was able to attend. So a lot of targets for insert quarterback here.
We're gonna find out. It doesn't have to be Fort Knox secret. This is my PSA to all coaches. You don't have to keep it Fort Knox secret. Like it's okay. This is not a shot at Keeler. I speak to all coaches in football. But aside, back to, can we talk about defense a little bit? Because this is what I thought is interesting is as I've kind of watched the Rice progression under Coach Bloomgren, I'm like, man, if you could just get one side of the ball you're really good at and get competent on the other hand, like then it'll work out. And I think this is a defense that was, I think, better than a lot of people outside expected, making the talent jump into the FBS level. There's a couple leaders I know coming back, but I did notice I was kind of scanning the depth chart. There's a couple of the transfers that you mentioned being pulled in here. So how does that kind of makeup work with some of the key pieces coming back and trying to fill in the right spots with the portal?
Well, with a new defensive coordinator coming in, kind of shaking things up, Skylar Cassidy, it was going to be interesting to see how they were going to be able to mix the old with the new, but they've done an excellent job with it. Trevor Williams was a stalwart of this program for the last 4 or 5 years, leading the offense at that Mike linebacker position. So when he graduated a year ago, we looked at it and we were like, man, this guy's going to be incredibly tough to replace. He was the nation's leading solo tackler last year, which was impressive given, the jump and for an undersized Mike linebacker. So we were concerned how that was going to play out. But Kavian Gaither, who was our other representative at Media Day, he's stepped into that role. He's going to wear the dot for the green dot for Saturday and probably throughout the entire season. So that's one name to look at. And then where they've been most impressed with is in the secondary, in the DB room. That's Coach Keeler said the wide receivers were really great, but he said the defensive backs room is really solid too. And the one transfer that stood out to us was Isaiah Cash from Houston Christian, who was a very late add in the transfer portal window and it blew everybody away in training camp. So it's definitely a different looking defense. I honestly, when I was going to those fall camps, I did focus a little more on the offensive side when I was on the field. But from what I've been told as well, the defense just feels like it's where it needs to be. They just need to get out there and play somebody other than themselves. So.
And lastly, Carlos, anything that you've keyed on, like what this game will come down to for the Bearcats, ABC, XYZ, that kind of thing?
To me, the major thing is that if it is drawn out down to the wire, and let's say if Sam Houston has a lead late, it's going to come down to the defense being able to hold things together, and we'll definitely see if the things that the program worked on in the offseason works with strength and conditioning and nutrition, because the inability to finish games at this level, that's a killer, and we saw that last year. So if it's a late game situation where Sam has any sort of lead, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 7 point, they got to be able to find a way to make stops at the other end. And that's not to take anything away from Rice. It's an incredible offense that Coach Bloomgren has. And I'm excited to see E.J. Warner play with the bloodline that he has. So if they can finish the game, that is the goal. But if they find themselves in other situations like having to play from behind, I'm intrigued to see whoever that is at quarterback, can they lead a drive in a high-pressure situation? Because we've seen over the years here at Sam Houston, you've had the haves and you've had the have-nots. Can the new guy or the old guy take care of the business that they need to take care of going into the ballgame Saturday?
Hey, thanks for the time, brother. Look forward to talking to you in person on game day. Safe travels on the very hefty commute coming down south. And I really, really appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Matthew, JP, appreciate y'all having me. I'm a Houstonian native. I'm a native of Houston, so I know that traffic all too well. So I have my travel plans figured out for I-45 and then some when I get down there. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday. Thanks for having me.
Cool. See you there. Thanks, Carlos.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's not game day yet. I'll tell you what.
That gets you into it, though, that like we didn't have our normal longer preamble because of my Goblins, but yeah, this is the time of year where you that chat and then just doing this with you. It's game week. That's what it feels like.
Can I just make an edict? They've never put me in charge of anything in my life, but if they did, I would, as czar of college sports, you have to open against the game from within a certain mile radius. It has to be a bus trip from your home stadium. Like I am, and we were talking about this at the press conference today with Mike Bloomgren. This is the first time that Rice has opened at home in 6 years since that walk-off field goal win over Prairie View. A lot has changed with this.
Yeah.
Since the program then, and now the opportunity to play at home and the opportunity to play against a team that, you know, the Texas ties and the nearbyness, like they will have some fans in the stands. This is how it's supposed to work. Like it was fun to go up to Austin. It was fun to go out to USC, but like, man, come home, play a team nearby and just kind of start off with the football game instead of a slugfest, you know?
And the ties between the two, I might be jumping the gun. You might have gotten to this later, but Bobby Williams, the AD, outstanding human being. I don't say that only because I know him, but he's done a great job at Sam. And he played at Rice, and his dad, Bobby Williams Sr., coached at Rice. So there's great camaraderie there. The programs, it's like they know each other without having played each other since 1993. And like, you know, we've talked on air and off. This is how it should be in most weeks. I'm not opposed to getting onto a plane every now and then, but that regional rivalry, there's a certain school in College Station and a certain school in Austin that are finally, despite not wanting to play each other for so many years.
The state might explode, JP. It just.
And that is what it's all about. These types of games, this is what it's about. And this the first 3 weeks, you know, with Celebrate Houston next week against Texas Southern and the team across town coming up the week after that. But I know we'll discuss that at a time of our choosing. But
can I give you one more interesting link? As he was talking this, I had to look it up. We have Isaiah Cash, who we mentioned there, one of their marquee defensive backs they brought in from Houston Christian, grad guy that has come in, and I looked back, played opposite the ball of Rice Al Tyson Thompson at Houston Christian. I think back when it was called Houston Baptist, if we want to go way back. And Tyson Thompson got on the 2 deep this week, his long return from injury, getting back on the field. So we might have some HCU on HCU action in a game featuring 2 different schools. And if that doesn't perfectly sum up the transfer portal era and Texas college football all at once, here we are.
Yeah, I can't wait. Do you want to talk about anything what area do you want to go to next? Or how do you want to do it? You steer me, and I am very valuable. We can go wherever you want to go.
Well, I think at this point, we've spent all off season prognosticating about how this can be a really special team at South Main. And I know at the beginning of every year, everybody's 0-0 and the sky's the limit. You're undefeated, conference champions. There's been no chinks in the armor. So we'll save the end route for a little bit, but I want to talk about specifics about this game because I think it's interesting. You mentioned some of the changes going on earlier at Sam Houston. Do you have a new quarterback at Rice, a couple new pieces, a lot of interesting names that have cropped up from the transfer portal, some healthy, some not? If you had one or two things that you really need to see from the team this weekend to really validate the hopes that you've had this offseason, that this can be a team that can live up to the expectations that they're putting on themselves, once not just to win the game, but what's one thing that you want to see this weekend that will let you have a sigh of relief, like they got this?
Well, big picture, when I do these types of talks and I am as genuine on air as off, or that's at least the goal, is you have to wonder about receiver. Like, who is replacing a guy that was all over the record books in Luke McCaffrey, and who's that going to be? Had Ty Bowman, who had some bumps and bruises in camp. He had all the accolades, but we know what Rawson McNeil has done. And you mentioned Thompson emerging, and we saw a lot of good guys emerge in camp as some possible targets. But I like the way you asked that question. Forget the exact verbiage earlier today at the presser. Like, hey, what about this receiver core, for lack of a better phrasing? So if I know the season doesn't come down to the first game, despite what a lot of college football fans think, but the number one answer to your question would be receiver. But let's not kid ourselves. When you got Warner, he's his own man. He ain't his daddy. He's not his brother's, but he is over for a guy, JT Daniels, that was a friggin' magician. How many times did we say that last year in this airspace? So we know he's got the bona fides that you have documented. I think you probably broke the news to me that he was coming here. So obviously we think Warner's going to be pretty good with his bona fides, but hey, who's he going to throw to? Who emerges as that top target? I think it could be Bowden Gruen too. You and I were kind of camping around him a few days ago at camp. He's turning some heads with the scouts. So Gruen could be that safety valve over the middle, but who's outside?
I'll give you one more. I think, and I do this, and I'll plug on Patreon, patreon.com/@the-roost. Do this every year. It's one of my favorite pieces that I work on. Watch all of fall camp, and then I pick 3 rising stars. And I call them 3 guys that are outs. They're not starters. They're fringe 2-deep guys that I think by the time we get to October, November are going to be dudes, and they're going to be household names. And my gosh, Mike Bloomgren, you're going to make me rewrite this, because 4 weeks ago, I grabbed Drayden Dickman as a guy that I'm like, this guy is going to be a dude, because he wasn't on the 2-deep for fall camp. He was like the 3rd string flanker receiver, I believe, going into camp behind a couple other guys. And lo and behold, first depth chart comes out today, and he's the starting flanker. He's going to be a guy they move all over the formation. And Rice has been looking for years for that one guy who can run fast and play receiver. They've tried with so many different guys, and it just hasn't worked out. And like, man, like, if he can be that guy that can do both, catch and run, when you have a good quarterback, I'm not going to be surprised if he takes the top off the defense a couple times.
Yeah, and Coach singled him out today, so that doesn't make me feel bad. Like, I'm not giving away any intel to the Sam Houston folks that in camp, you and I, me and Nate, you and Nate, we're talking about Dickman. Like, wow, he's
not a secret anymore. Yeah. Because I had people walking up to me at media day and saying, hey, who's number 6? And I was just like, what? Yeah, number 6 in the video game. He's returning kicks for Rice, and he's the fastest guy in the American Conference. And I was like, oh, is that Drayden Dickman? He is. So the secret's out. He's got a good EA college sports rating. Hopefully he can back it up with his play on the field.
Yeah, we saw a few of those plays last year, and that promise is there. You want to go defense because, I mean, losing to Braylon Carroll on the defensive line, but adding a guy like Charlie Lewis, Looes, not the traditional
Yep.
spelling, but then Daly coming from BYU. What was it Coach Bloomgren said today about trying to find some packages to get Daly and Piercy, our guy Josh Piercy, the other JP, on the field together. So you know me, starts up front. So I like those additions where the D line has been fortified. I think Sid Calhoun is the best defensive line coach at the G5 level. And then what you lose in the secondary, I think you make up for some depth. They've got some depth in the secondary. The linebacker core is probably the deepest unit on the team. John Kay really likes it.
Yeah.
And they've got 7 starters. Myron Morrison was telling me at practice last week, hey, we act like we've got 7 starters at linebacker. So there's a lot of depth and a lot of punch, and it could be a mean defense this year.
Yeah, shout out to John Kay. When he got here, I mean, Bryce plays 2 linebackers, so there hasn't been much impetus on like, let's over recruit this position. When he got here, this was a really thin unit that just didn't have the depth. And now I would probably contend it's the deepest unit on the team, like bar none. So I'll say that. And then another guy that I wanted to hit on, and I don't say this lightly, I'm trying to think, definitely on the defense, of the guys in fall camp that have just made me drop my jaw and just go, wow. I think Michael Daly might have been the most impressive player on the defense. I feel pretty confident saying it. I'm trying to decide if I want to go further, but definitely on the defense for a guy that, you know, came from BYU, did his mission, got married, had a kid, and has 4 years of eligibility remaining. Like, his story is so interesting. Like, I want to sit down with him, chat with him a little bit more about it, but he's a grown man playing college football, and he plays like a grown man playing college football. So I think the biggest differentiator that Rice has really missed on defense these last couple of years is they've always had a guy that's a really good pass rusher. But the problem when you only have one guy, like truly elite guy, is people can scheme around them. And like they had Coleman Coco and Achukwu and just go all the way back, Anthony Ekpe. Like, they always had a guy, Trey Schumann in his peak years. But if you could kind of scheme around him, then you could kind of make the unit more bearable. And so what I'm really looking for to answer my question that I tossed you a couple minutes ago, I want to see this D line, because if you can tell me that we know Josh Piercy is a capital D dude, if there's more of him, if Michael Daly becomes a thing, if Charlie Lewis becomes a thing, Isaiah Floyd today during his media availability singled out Damone Green as a guy who's taken a big step this offseason. There's so many guys. If they can become just very, very good to upper tier pass rushers in the American, that unlocks the rest of this defense. And then the offense doesn't have to go gangbusters. The offense can just move down the field and do their thing. I think that's what we want to see. It's just, will we see it?
I wanted to refresh my numbers on the run defense. And yeah, what you were talking about Daly.
All the numbers have changed. Yes.
All the numbers have changed, but they were 153 yards a game on run defense. That put them 8th in the conference. I think stopping the run in this league is big. I mean, by comparison, their passing defense last year was 2nd. So if you could get that rush defense on par with what it was for a lot of the year, that would be good. And special teams, I know we're running short, but they brought in Alex Bachetta, a very interesting guy coming from Penn State, challenging Connor Hunt. And as far as the opening day, he's won that punting job. So he was the former top ranked or top 3 ranked punter.
Top ranked, number 1 in the country.
Yeah. And so I think they were last in net punting in the conference last year. So maybe Bachetta adds on to that. And then Tim Horn or Enoch Goda, they're listed as an either or on the kicking duties. And I'm not going to take Pete Alamar's job anytime soon. But judging by what I've seen, our guy Goda, shout out Enoch, we know you're watching. He's a faithful P1 of the presentation, but he can boom it like you would expect a kicker. But I think Horn has his confidence back up where it needs to be too. So
from what I've told, Horn will have the place kicking job this year, especially at least out of the gate. I'm not sure what kickoffs are going to be. Enoch did a really good job on that last year. And I think they trust both guys. So boom, you got specialist analysis in week 1. We're ready. JP, anything else that we need to tell the folks before we sign off?
Well, same broadcast outlets. We have beefed up the broadcast, best broadcast season yet for what Coach Bloomgren said, shapes up to be his best team. So I'm just going to go out there and say it. We've got the best broadcast team that we've had too. So catch us Varsity Network, Al's Game Day app, riceals.com. And don't go be shy on self-promoting yourself. Patreon at the Roost and
absolutely. We're on all the socials, whatever you want to call them now. I'm going to go from this and I'm going to write up some notes from practice and stuff this week. So if you want to fill on every position we previewed, we had a section on fullbacks that's in there too. We previewed all the Owls, American Conference opponents. We got a ton of stuff in there. Rising Stars, Drayden Dickman. I'm still keeping you in there. It's been a busy off season. We got the season coming. I've been trading notes with some guys from Sam. We'll have some behind enemy lines notes coming on the site this week for patrons. It's time, man. There's no bullets left in the chamber for the off season. We'd emptied them all, and now we're ready to start year 1. So I would like it to be with a victory. It'd make my job easier. It'd make your job easier. Everyone would be smiling, and I think they're off on the right track to do that.
I can't wait. I think, like Carlos was saying on his end, Rice is a team, and I told some Sam folks when they interviewed me last week, and this similar type of thing. The Rice we knew, get the lead and hold the lead, milk the clock. And we went the whole time without really even talking about Dean Connors, what the great second half he is. So rely on the running game, and pound that clock. And EJ
Team
Warner's
captain, Dean Connors.
Yeah. Warner's going to surprise some folks too, like he said at the podium today. They brought in some stuff from Temple, some schemes for him and OC Coach Tui. So get ahead. Newsflash, it's good to be ahead in a game, but don't try to play catch up. Still do what you do.
Yeah, enforce your will. You got the new shiny turf. Got some new unis. Look good, feel good, play good, win a football game. I think that's all we got. Maybe.
Yeah, that's it. And thanks for folks adjusting. 7:00 tonight. I guess it lives on in all the time on YouTube, but we're going to be high noon most weeks on Wednesday. Sometimes the Tuesday night that could be half and half, but just know that we're right here. Share with a Rice friend or 10, and we'll be here for your Rice analysis.
Yeah, and we got comments coming in here too. So you want to get on our live show and give us your live feedback. We'll take that too, for better or worse. I don't know if I just opened up the floodgate. Y'all like us. Y'all are nice. We can roll with it. We'll see you next week. For everybody listening, thanks so much. JP Heath, voice of the Rice Owls, Matthew Bartlett, editor of The Roost, here for another football season together. We will be back here next week, hit a little bit on Sam Houston, preview Texas Southern, and away we go. So that's all we got. We will see you in a week. Rice Fight.
Never dies, baby. Never dies.